What did you do in the past where you're like, now looking at it, this is absolute bullshit?
hmm Well, I think a lot of the models for manual therapy are valid. The narratives suck, So the model is the actual act of treating somebody with hands or tools. The narrative is the story you tell somebody for why it's doing what it's doing. So for example, here's a model and a narrative. You go to a chiropractor's office, they're like, "Oh, you see your C1 is out of place by 3 degrees to the left. That's why you have headaches and liver problems and you have gallstones." And they make up the connections to what they believe is the dysfunction and how that fits their skill set fits fixing that, right? So it's like, are chiropractic adjustments valid? If you look at the research, plenty of people feel better. Plenty of people report that they get faster pain relief with a chiropractic adjustment than almost any other means. Same thing with acupuncture. Acupuncture is probably one of the more well researched independent modalities that we have access to. And if you look at the literature for outcomes, at least, the outcomes are good. The outcomes are very good, right? So this whole idea like manual therapy is bullshit, it doesn't do anything, that all comes from the fact that in the late 2000s, research came out that really started to look at, are we actually breaking down tissue when we do something like Graston or ART? Because that was the narrative, right? The narrative is, oh, your range of motion is improving because I'm mechanically manipulating this soft tissue and this connective tissue. I've physically changed your connective tissues, therefore your movements changed. That was the narrative. Now, what happened was we do research and that gets debunked, right? Robert Schleip, famous in 2008, 2012 for creating a mathematical model for the breaking strain of dense connective tissue. And all of a sudden we realize, oh shit, if I really wanted to break up somebody's deep fascia, it would take 2,000 pounds per square inch of force. For context, that's the equivalent of the bite force of an American alligator.
Yeah,
It's like, I ain't doing that to somebody.
you're
You're
gonna
not
tear
doing that.
skin. You'll
Yeah, you
tear
would be
skin before you do
destroying
that.
somebody to do that. It's like, but they still felt better and they still moved better. So what happened? Now, a big subset of the rehab industry took that information. See, it's all bullshit. Well, it's like, well, no, it works. It just works for different reasons than we thought. And that's when I really started getting down like the applied neuroscience rabbit holes. Because here I am in 2009, having invested all this money into ART, Graston, all these different hands-on courses, and I'm like, I'm going to be out of a job. This is going to completely unravel. And then I just started asking myself different questions. Well, if I'm seeing this result and it's not because I'm mechanically changing tissue, then what am I changing? And what I started to learn was I'm changing the context of that tissue neurologically, the brain's opinion of that tissue downstream. And then I started really learning about neuroscience and neurochemistry and how you can apply that to movement and training and manual therapy. And that's what I'm talking about now. It's like more about, can I create an environment for change? That's what I'm trying to do. And there's plenty of different entry points for doing that. But the major case for manual therapy from just a pragmatic perspective is when people hire a service provider to help them with a problem, they expect something in exchange, right? So the example I use for this, and this is my gripe with like the evidence-based bros on Instagram and social media, which is like, oh, manual therapy is bullshit. You don't need that. All you need to do is load and get stronger. It's like, well, if you had a plumbing issue in your house and you hired a plumber to come fix it, and they came to your house and they said, okay, here's the step-by-step instructions for how you can do this on your own over time, that'd be $500. You'd be absolutely furious for that. You'd be like, I'm not paying you. That's bullshit. And that's essentially what physical therapy is slowly becoming. It's this hands off, not really an exchange. It's like, here's the printout of paper of exercises to do. Okay. So to me, I see the manual therapy part as the exchange, the value exchange. It's like, you're coming to me with a problem. I want to help you solve it. And I want to help you be autonomous and sustainable on your own. I want you not to need me. And that's the big gripe. The big argument against manual therapy is that it creates dependency. It creates a predatory relationship between the clinician and the client, where it's like, you need me. I'm the sage. I'm the healer. I'm the fixer. So what I do is I'm very careful with my words so that I don't create that situation. B, I'm very transparent. It's like, I'm not fixing you. You didn't get hurt on my table, therefore you can't get fixed there. But what I can do is use the hands-on treatment to facilitate you to feel better and move better for a short period of time. And we're going to use that to create an opportunity for you to learn how to use and move your body more effectively on your own. And we're going to guide you with the exercise programming part of that.
You, I mean, I would love to ask you about the words you use here
Mm-hmm.
because I think that's, as you were saying about the Kairos that are going on a big spiel, it's like they're trying to convince the people, right? They're like
Right.
taking them on a story, using placebo, making
Mm-hmm. Or
some
nocebo.
or nocebo, which is, has the same power, right?
Sure.
So when you looked at the neuroscience behind it then, and you're looking at really the perception of the brain and its connection to the body, are
Mm-hmm.
you using pacing and leading like sentences and structures? Like as an example, do you notice now that this is actually feeling better? Are you kind of leading them on a journey with this, or are you keeping it very sort of black and white? You're not trying to influence them whatsoever because persuasion is it's valid, right? It can have an
Right.
effect.
So I do use persuasion. I don't use it to convince people that the treatment is working. I use it as a way to convince them that they have the ability to change this on their own.
Mm.
That it's them that's in the driver's seat for their destiny and their outcome, and I'm just a guide, right? So like I don't call myself a fixer or a healer or any of those things, or I don't say like, oh, you need this treatment. Like before somebody even swipes the card for a care plan, I tell them straight up, you don't need manual therapy to get better. It can help the process move a whole lot faster, though. It's a turbo button. And that's what the evidence suggests is that manual therapy, if you were to rehabilitate somebody with a chronic pain issue with or without manual therapy, long term outcomes are about the same. But in the immediate short term, they are suffering less, they're experiencing more pain, and they're gaining more confidence. So I just use that short term window as a way to say, like, oh my, they come back for that second session. I'm feeling so much better. It's like, that's so powerful for them to get there on their own. Now, whether they attribute that to the treatment or the program or not is kind of up to them. I don't have as much control over that. But what I'm saying is, or like, for example, I'll be like, when we find these different maybe impairments or mobility issues in an assessment, and I'll say, hey, you're successful despite this. Imagine when we start cleaning this up. So I like to sell the upside. I like to sell the potential. I like to sell or show people or speak in words that get them excited about the person they could become, that they will be if they just continue down this path of putting themselves first, investing in themselves, taking care of their health. The basics. I mean, we're preaching the basics. It's not special. Sleep, nutrition, exercise, and then having a good social support system, which we obviously are trying to be for them as well on some level. But again, a lot of it is like that holistic woo-woo stuff just wrapped around really solid science and just packaged as manual therapy and movement. But it's a lot of it is behavioral cognitive therapies kind of like built into like changing people's perceptions of what they think their problem is. If you can change what they think the problem is, then you can change what they think the solutions are. And if I could do that, then wow, I can point them towards solutions that are actually going to help them long term beyond whatever short period injury that they have.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. Great response.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth with the leading questions, trying to guide them down the path or not, because the placebo is still very, very valuable, and
Mm-hmm.
belief is incredibly valuable. And if they believe they're going to get better, they're usually, like
They're
it's
going to get
it's a
better.
big thing.
100%.
And I I tend to be very removed. Like, hey, how do you feel? Better, worse, same? One, two, three. Which one is it? Better, worse, same? And just so you know, if you're not better, you can fucking tell me. We're gonna
Yeah.
work at this until you're better.
Right.
Right? Rather than being and I remember being in clinics like, oh, do you feel like 1% better, 2% better, 3% better? And it's like, yeah, I don't fucking like that. Even
No,
though it's still
I
valuable.
agree.
And like, it's I really want to try to help these people a lot. And that's why also I've gotten rid of a lot of my evaluation.
Okay.
Now, I when I was younger, I mean, I found 6 different ways to diagnose cancer. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
oh, well, fucking thoracic spine rotation isn't good. And, like I knew everything. And then I realized, like, I can't really do much about this. So why am I fucking showing this? Like,
Mm,
there are times where a lot of T spine rotation issues, I, a lot of it is just who they are or the
mm-hmm.
asymmetries, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can identify all the asymmetries. Yeah, it's a fucking baseball player. Of course, there's fucking asymmetries. Like
Right.
these are, it's a sports adaptation versus it's like versus anything else that's negative. Like you need to
Right.
have something. So I've gone. Right now I'm probably at the 180 where it's like, yeah, a lot of this shit that I'm seeing doesn't seem to matter, and there's certain things that I have, certain guys that I work with, and I'm really, really good at getting people out of pain. I'm very, very good with our athlete population. I'm fucking great at it. There's very few people that I cannot get out of pain with our athletes, whether they need
Mm-hmm.
surgery or not. I can reduce pain,
Sure.
and it's not that tough. Now I have a guy who has a foot problem that he's had since high school, and I just got him for his first time this year, and I think he's high A this year, and he's 26 years old. So he's had this problem for 10 years. Now, every time I get him on the table, he's good. Comes off the table, he's fine. A couple days later, comes back, no matter how much work we do. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, all right, there are some aspects where I told him, I said, listen, one, had this for 10 years. I'm good. I ain't that fucking good.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This is going to take some time. But you are in a sport where you're constantly stressing this. Now, if you want this to go away forever, there's a really good chance that you probably won't be playing the sport then, right? Because this is a foot problem and it happens whenever you rotate. And what
Mm-hmm.
the fuck is a swing? So, like, there are times where, hey, man, this is just the cost of doing business, and we're going to try to mitigate this pain, even though we know it's going to come back.
Right.
Um, do you, what do you do in those types of situations? Do you tell them, like, hey, listen, this may this may just be how it is and we need to manage it, or do you leave them with positive expectations or like the hope? How do you address
Mm-hmm.
problems like that?
Again, I think it kind of boils down to like my early interactions with this person and just kind of the sense I get for, where they're at mindset wise around this issue. What has it prevented them from doing? How has it altered their lifestyle? So it does really depend. I think athletes are a little easier in the sense that they're singularly focused on the sport being the primary outcome measure. If they can play their sport, they almost can tolerate almost anything else, right? So in that sense, they're a little easier, right? But here's my argument for why I think you should go back to doing the assessments. The assessments are not for you. That's the mistake clinicians make. The assessments aren't for you, it's for them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to take them on a journey to show them where the opportunities are. And if they don't understand the baseline function of their body, how can they understand what it could do? Right? So if when I'm looking at when I run people through my assessment, I'm not looking for flaws. I'm looking for opportunities. Now, it's the same thing, it's a different perspective, it's a different lens, and that's me again being careful with my words and how I present it is these are the opportunities that are going to guide the program design and the treatment aspect so that we can test our hypothesis of what the linchpin in the system is, right? So my argument for you that athlete would be, okay, if this athlete has a specific foot pain issue with rotation, then where are they missing rotation? Why are they over leveraging that? Why is the foot, potentially doing more? And maybe there isn't a concrete answer to that, Mike. It could just be a context thing. And that's partly when you start really going down the pain science rabbit holes and really, again, pain is context specific. It's not necessarily tissue specific.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to say what the associations neurologically with that particular athlete are that yield their yield is always, I have foot pain with this rotational movement. It could be boiled down to a biomechanical thing that is changeable. So my perspective is whether it is or isn't directly correlated or causative of whatever the dysfunctions I find are, what's the downside to addressing them? Right? So, obviously we could look at, okay, if I do this particular intervention, is it absolutely going to fix this problem? Okay, maybe not. Maybe we can agree clinically that that isn't always going to be the case. But what's the downside? What is the downside to doing it? Am I again, so starting with do no harm, right? If I'm doing some soft tissue work on their foot, and the alternative is going to be, them going to get corticosteroid injections that are going to degrade their connective tissue so they can get similar pain relief, I'm going to go with the thing that has less downside. And I think
Nope.
that's partly where people can buy into the process, right? So when I finish their assessment and I sit down and I say, hey, here's my vision for you. Here are the variables that I think in your equation I'd like to help you change. Here's exactly how we're going to do that. What do you think? And then I just shut up and let them tell me what they think or what their contributing factors are, because whether they're right or wrong, it's a valid, if they think it's associated, that means it's valid in their mind. And that's why I have people want placebo controlled trials for all these manual therapy techniques, because placebo's bullshit. It's like, no, placebo is your brain giving you the exact result that you were looking for. The means by which that happens is negotiable. As far as I'm concerned, I don't really care as long as the result is there. Somebody feels better, they can move better, and I can get them closer in proximity to what their desired state is.
So let me push back a little bit now.
Sure. Yeah.
I had a guy 11, 12 years ago, 400 plus pound bencher, strong fucking lineman. Uh, One of his shoulders was stuck like this. Now,
Mm-hmm.
he told me he tore his rotator cuff when he was in high school. And this guy is strong as shit. T-spine issue, pec minor issue. We address those things, get things to go down a little bit. What does he do? He blows out his fucking pec, right? Because the compensation pattern was there for a specific reason. So
Right.
if I'm sitting here and I'm mixing with that and mixing with this, now with this player, with this the one baseball player that we have the issue with, he don't have any pain when he's swinging. He has pain when he's done playing and he's walking around afterwards. Like, at some point, like, yeah, it's a little uncomfortable, but like, bro, who gives a fuck? You know what I mean? Like, it ain't that big of a deal. So you feel a little
Right.
discomfort. We could do some of the exercises, and it's like, oh well, how do I make this go away forever? I don't fucking know.
Right.
Now, I with the formal assessment standpoint, our whole workout is always an assessment, right? Every
Sure.
single workout, every single exercise, that's a constant assessment for us. And watching how, because it's a concert, right? It's not
Right.
about each instrument, which I look at a lot of the assessments. Like there are some things where it's like, holy fuck, we need to know about this, right? But there, majority of the time, seeing how things work in concert with each other is more important, and seeing how it adapts to certain things rather than having that blanket assessment. Now, I love what you said with the opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now we do speed assessments, we do jump assessments, we do all these things. And it's just never a formal, I guess, sales pitch or a formal meeting to get that type of opportunity. Now, how do you distinguish idiosyncrasies versus
Mm-hmm.
flaws, right? Or protective compensations versus disadvantageous compensations, right? Like, how do
Right.
you figure that out, and how do you distinguish the difference between them? Because that's
Well,
fucking tough.
so to answer the first part of that question, which is, like everything's an assessment. I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. But they don't know that.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't know that. You know that because you've been in the trenches for decades and you could just see it. Like I could sit down with somebody and just do a subjective and get 85% of the information I need to create a kosher treatment and training plan for them. I could probably do no assessment whatsoever. I take it through them so they can experience how their limitations affect the way that they move. And then I sit down and say, can we agree that changing these might be advantageous for you given what you're trying to do? And they would say, yes. Okay, we're on the same page now. Because for me to help you with a problem, first we have to agree what the problem actually is. So most people are coming to me with a pain issue. And if I had a magic wand and I could fucking Harry Potter them and get rid of their pain, I would charge a fuck ton more money and that would be done. That would be it, right? But we can't do that. So I have to now sell this person their desired state. But what are they going to do? Well, unless I can guarantee it some way, right? Or which I can't do, and I'm transparent about that. But if I present to them a plan that seemingly checks off all the boxes as to the variables that are related to the problem that we now agreed on, they could now move forward more confidently making a decision on what they want to do. And most of that is because I can, and they're like, oh, I'm going to go see a few other people and see what they think. Go right ahead. Be my guest. I'll see you in a couple of weeks, because nobody's doing that. Nobody's really taking the time to sit down, A, to get to know you, B, provide you a ton of value up front, no strings attached, C, present to you what the plan is exactly going to look like and what your role in that plan is and what the expectations are. Here's what you can expect from me. Here's what I expect from you. If you can agree to that, I will work with you on this problem for as long as it takes. And I think that's partly how you bridge the gap between the actual X's and O's of a training and rehab business and the business side of it itself, because you have to have some kind of happy marriage between those two things, right? Because the clinical model and the business model, and this is the mistake most business owners or clinical business owners make, which is they have a business model and a clinical model that aren't cohesive. And that makes it very difficult to sell. So the eval is designed to, A, give me data by which I can pull meaningful information that helps me guide a program design, and B, show them the difference in what they can expect here versus what they'll expect somewhere else. And whether or not these dysfunctions, quote unquote, that I pull out are truly causative of whatever their problem is, doesn't matter at that point. But it doesn't matter, because what the goal is to help, is for me and the client to both determine collectively what adaptations we're trying to make. And in order to do that, they have to understand, A, how adaptations occur, and B, where they're at right now. So if I want to be an ultra marathoner and I've got chronic nondescript low back pain and my hip mobility, my hip extension, and my great toe mobility sucks, it's like, well, do I know 100% that me cleaning up their hip extension, their great toe extension is going to help their low back? No. But if they're the largest deficits in that assessment, at least I have a starting place. And now I can use that intervention or that program design as a diagnostic tool. Because if they're like, hey, Mike, I've been working on these correctives for the last 2 weeks and I feel amazing, it's like, bing, 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 bing. So was it the actual hip extension that made them feel better, or just the fact that they had a solid plan that they believed in, that they were able to consistently execute on their own at a high level, or time, or placebo belief systems? I don't give a fuck. I care about the outcome. That's it. And I'll use all the tools that I have, known and unknown. And this is where knowing your neuroscience and your applied psychology can really help. Leading people to their own conclusions, helping them problem solve for themselves, just giving them the tools to do that, and having a place where they can talk about it and we can have a conversation and maybe find some value that way also. So again, I love the idiosyncrasies. I had the same conversation with Joe DeFranco, which is like, how do you determine that? And it's like, it's impossible to determine what is an adaptation that made this person special. And is that also the double-edged sword that is their liability? Probably. What I told him was, it's not asymmetries that are an issue from an injury perspective. It's poorly managed asymmetries that become a problem. It's the baseball player who's got crazy asymmetries who stops playing baseball and he's like, CrossFit, and he's doing a ton of symmetrical bilateral loading on top of his wicked asymmetries, and now he wonders why his right shoulder is barking at him. Well, the functional demand you're placing on your body, you've created adaptations for this totally different thing, for totally different reasons. Now your reasons have changed quickly, but your body hasn't. Your body is still set up to throw the baseball. So we have to work on managing that. And again, I'll be like, hey, let's just go to unilateral training for a while we start to clean these things up. And again, are we seeking perfect symmetry? No. I'm trying to make it good to the point where it's not a problem for you anymore. And you can do the things that you want to do, that your functional demand is not exceeding your current level of capacity or competency. So again, for some people, that asymmetry is an adaptation that makes them special. For other people, it's the liability that could be the linchpin to their pain problem. It just depends on the context. And that's why getting to know your people is so important, and kind of figuring out what their why is. Why do they want to do this thing? It's like I had a client recently who's a manager for a bunch of different F-45. He's part of a ownership group that owns like 8 F-45s. And he got really into Olympic lifting, right? Okay, awesome. I'm like, do you want to compete in Olympic lifting? And he's like, no, I just want to get better at it. But he's the classic guy that would be terrible at Olympic lifting, where he's long femurs, long limbs, tiny torso, hinges his squat, limited hip mobility. He's got tall guy problems, you know? It's like tall guys don't typically do well in Olympic weightlifting, but that's what he wants to do. So it's like, yeah, there's going to be some genetic limitations for you based on your setup, but my job is to help you get closer to the end goal. And if that's what you want to do, who am I to tell you that you shouldn't, right? So it just depends. Unfortunately, the real answer is it depends on the case and on the person. And sometimes it's just a conversation around, again, clearly defining, like one of my favorite questions to ask people before I even start assessing them is, what does success look like for you? Open-ended. What is the version of success that is in your mind right now? Great. That gives me something to shoot for. You know, now I know exactly what carrots I have to play to start to get them closer to that.
Where did you get your eval?
Oh, it's a hodgepodge of a lot of different systems. I always joke it's like the Bruce Lee method. Bruce Lee was famous for saying, like, take what you like and adapt it, and take what you don't like and reject it, essentially. And he was talking about it in the terms of like philosophy, but I think that works really well for what we do. Some of my stuff is a little bit SFMA-ish. Some of it's FRC style. Some of it's based on PRI, Posture Restoration Institute. Some of it's just like classic orthopedic assessments that I've really liked over the years. And it's kind of like a blended approach. But again, the whole point of the assessment is to take people through the story of their body, of how it moves. That's what I'm trying to do. I want them to experience their movement in a way that I can use it as a way to teach them applied biomechanics on like an entry level way so that they understand how these things are connected, right? So when somebody comes into me, let's say with really chronic low back pain, and they have poor spine mobility, right? And they have poor hip mobility, and they don't disassociate their hip from their spine well. Now, I'm sure I could find research that says that those things don't matter for people with nondescript low back pain. But when I show that person, like, hey, here's this environment that your body's created, right? Meanwhile, your goal is to be an Olympic weightlifter. You see how those two things don't jive necessarily. So we have to let's pick an adaptation for you that gets us closer to being efficient and effective in the thing that you want to do. So we're working on your hip mobility. We still have to find a place to start with somebody, right? So that's why I hate like this whole movement in physical therapy. Like there's a lot more PTs and chiros out there now who are like basically like personal trainers and strength coaches. Like it's like, oh, you just need to get stronger. It's like, well, that dude was strong as fuck, still had shoulder pain. So you can't tell me that strength is going to solve people's problems. Now, why do we see that in the research base? Well, when we're studying general populations of people, general exercise and general physical preparedness is going to show a good effect size. Because if you take deconditioned people and get them to exercise on any level, lots of stuff's going to get better, right? But if you take an athlete who's already well conditioned, who's strong, who, you know, maybe has their nutrition and other lifestyle factors in check, and they have a particular pain problem, you can't just strength them better. Sorry. It's just not going to, that is not a good enough solution. And that's where a lot of like, it's kind of like, are you familiar with what I'm talking about? You've seen this movement on social media where it's like PTs like just get stronger, manual therapy sucks, like you don't need all these treatment things.
Dude, that's fucking everyone. It's not just PT.
Everyone. No, I know. It's like because it's the evidence-based movement. And exercise is the best evidence-based medicine that we have, which I 100% agree with. But the way that I look at it is like, it's like, you know, like ancient Roman architecture versus like modern architecture, right? Like in the Romans, the ancient civilizations, everything was so ornate and detailed and, you know, like these mosaic tiles. And I'm thinking of this because I went to Italy recently with my wife and we went to these, you know, we went to, you know, St. Peter's Basilica, and you're standing in St. Peter's Basilica and it's like the most ornate, I've never seen anything like it in my entire life. The tiny little pieces of tile, like this, like tiny, smaller than a dime, millions of them hand placed to create these crazy works of art that you can only see from far away. And now like beautiful architecture is like straight lines, very minimal. It's like it's so vanilla and plain, right? But that's what PT has become. It's vanilla and plain. It's the same thing everywhere. So I think the people who you're seeing with some success are going to be people who can weave in a little bit of flavor to that, weave in something that's a little different,
Bit of
Yeah.
beauty.
a bit of
Yeah.
beauty, a bit of art, man. I think, listen, I love science, but part of what we're doing here, when you're dealing with somebody in pain, some of that's art. And the art of getting somebody to buy into the process is what we're selling. That's what we're selling. But they want help, right? So it's like, yeah, sure. I want my clients to be able to climb Everest on their own and achieve that for themselves. But guess what? Everybody who climbs Everest needs a Sherpa. Everybody needs somebody to give them a hand at a certain point in the process or some advice or, hey, you know what? Avoid that step because it's going to fucking send you down a crevice and you're going to die. Maybe we go this way because we've had more success in the past going this route. Like that's what people need. Yeah, people need a guide, but sometimes people need a helping hand. Some people are in pain and they can't move without prepping their. So like, oh, foam rolling's a waste of time. Yeah, for some people it's a waste of time. For other people, it's an entryway to movement that they previously didn't have. So shut the fuck up.
Bro, that this is fucking awesome. You're fucking crushing this, bro.
I
You're
appreciate that. I love this stuff, man. This is what I do.
yeah,
I can
I
have a 5-star fucking service, man.
I
yeah.
appreciate that. That's
All
always
the
been the goal is just make it better, make it better, make it better. Can we do this better? Can we? And the cool part now for me is that it isn't 100% me anymore. All of my staff, all my guys have had their hand in it to make it what it is now. And they get to be part of that and have autonomy and have some decision on how we change things and how we do make it better. And I include them in that process. And that's what makes it collaborative and fun, for them. Because I think, everybody needs to get paid enough to live, but, partly having your employees feel fulfilled in what they do and feel like they're a part of something that's bigger than them. I think that keeps people around way more than the paycheck does. And it gives you the opportunity to groom them into leaders so that you can then take the step back and not have to do every single thing. And again, I thought I'd never stop treating, but now I'm getting closer where I'm starting to remove myself from the day to day and I'm watching my staff go out and do their thing and I'm going, holy shit. Like this is so fucking good. And I didn't even teach them that. I didn't even teach Dean that. And look what he's doing. It's like, that's so freaking cool to me, you know?
Yeah. But that's wise of you too, bro. To let the not be the bottleneck no more. You know?
Well, again, I've been a part of a lot of places that were like that. That stifled growth and ideas because egos get in the way. It's like I've been around this game long enough to know I don't know everything, and I'm still learning and I still have room for growth too. And that's what makes it exciting for me.
Dude, I love it. Thank you so much for coming on here. You fucking
My
crushed
pleasure.
this. And bro, I'm gonna be sliding in your DMs all the time now, asking
Sure.
fucking business questions. Do you have a
Absolutely.
business service?
I do. Yeah. So we actually launched the beta for the program last fall and I ran 15 entrepreneurs through it. It's called Mike Stella's Clinical Business Growth Engine. But the idea was for me to kind of take all the mistakes and all the things I've learned about clinical business over the last 10 years and just start to help other entrepreneurs kind of think about their businesses differently and make a bigger impact on their communities, make a bigger impact on their own life, their staff's life, and grow while you do it and make the money that you deserve to make. So the idea is it's three pieces. The first piece is about 11 hours worth of business courses that I've written and recorded. So those are kind of like you can just watch that content and start to look at how it applies to your business. Then we also have a community. So like I call it the hive mind, where all the business owners are in a community that we can kind of share ideas, ask questions, share resources, and just, so like every entrepreneur, I think you start your business and all of a sudden you kind of feel a little isolated, like you're on an island. Maybe you're a therapist that was working with a lot of other therapists and now you're on your own and you start to lose that collaborative aspect of it, which is where a lot of growth can happen. So we have the community aspect. And then what we're also doing is my marketing team that helped me build out my software, my GHL, we're actually cloning my software and applying it to these other businesses and teaching entrepreneurs how to bring all of their marketing in-house. so that they don't have to pay. It's like the anti-marketing agency, even though it's like I partnered with the marketing agency that I hired, who I've known for years, but we've had so much success with it that they were like, hey, Mike, we really, we're looking for some referrals. Like, and I was like, listen, I got a 62,000 therapists that follow my shit. So I'm like, why don't we partner together? Because I really love, coaching people on this stuff. And it's just, again, like I get the same joy out of that I do from treating, which is like seeing that aha moment happen for a clinician when they realize, oh, I can charge more and still these people will pay it. Or, oh, here's how I can feel really authentic and good about my message and also have it bring people through the door. Because you can have that. Like a lot of people think they have to sell out their values and their morals and their ethics just to get likes and views online. You don't. I never did that once. I never did a freaking gimmick. I never put up some bullshit just to get views or engagement. I put out what I think is valuable. And if people like it, great. If they don't, that's fine too. But it's worked out well for me. So I'm just trying to share that and help other entrepreneurs get there a little faster, hopefully.
What else do you want to share? Anything else?
Really just that, all of this shit takes time. Just like training, just like rehab, just like life, like of course hindsight's always 2020, but like all the hardships, all the bullshit, all the struggle, like I wouldn't trade any of it for where I'm at now. I would do it all over again gladly, knowing that this is where it would lead me. And, I'm more fulfilled in my life now and like truly happy and at peace than I've ever been in my entire existence as a human. So for me, it's cool, and it's cool to be able to give that back, and again, that's really just the goal, is just give it back. I can't take it with me. So I'm just going to try to give it back as much as I can. I love this stuff. This is my life. I've never been somebody that has like a work-life balance, because it's hard to separate those two things for me. Like I am as advertised. You meet me in real life, this is what you're going to get. But no, that's it. I think we kind of covered a good chunk.
You deserve it, Mike. And like I
I
said,
appreciate that, man.
you'd be a great hunter, my man. I'd want you in my tribe.
Oh,
I
listen, I'd be there, man. Oh, hell yeah.
focused on.
Have you ever read Sapiens? You got to read it.
Of course.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just a fantastic, it definitely one of those books that like makes you question like, oh, what you think is important in life and what's real and what's, rooted in, and understanding that our organism is set up for that and that we're applying it to this modern lifestyle. And I think that's why a lot of people struggle. But just getting back to some of those things can really maybe help us take those steps forward. But yeah, that's it.
Awesome.
What, bro? Fucking inspiration. You're great, bro. Honest to
I
God.
appreciate that. Thank you. It was really nice to meet both of you guys. It was really a lot of fun.
Yeah, I got to come out there and check your place out.
Absolutely. Anytime. Anytime. Strong Island. I know you got to make that. It was funny because when I was talking with Joe, it's like Jersey people hate coming to Long Island and Long Island people hate going to Jersey.
Yeah.
And I really think it just comes down to the traffic. I think once you get there, it's like, oh, this isn't so bad.
No, well, you're on a fucking island, so I hate
Right.
that.
I know. And you got to
hate
get
that.
through New York City to get here, which sucks. But again,
And
it's
I
a great
hate
place.
New York. I hate, bro. I hate New York. One of my former athletes has a gym out there in Long Island. Chris Hogan.
Yeah, I know Chris. He's one of my clients, or he was.
Fuck out of here.
He partnered with the guy who used to do the strength. We were rented in the same facility. I met Chris because I was treating him when he moved to Long Island, and then introduced him to Warren.
Warren,
his coach. Yeah, yeah, I know Chris well.
What a small world.
I know. Of course. And it was really
recording.
funny because.
Let me end this recording real quick.